Have you ever gazed out at the open ocean and felt a sense of awe mixed with a strange feeling of emptiness? It's a vast, rolling expanse of blue, the largest single habitat on our planet. Yet we call its sunlit upper layers the pelagic zone, a term often associated with the idea of a blue desert. For miles in every direction, there's nothing but water, sunlight, and sky. This image of a beautiful, tranquil, but fundamentally empty space is deeply ingrained in our consciousness. But is it true? We've explored more of the surface of Mars than we have our own ocean depths, and we tend to assume that what we can't see simply isn't there. We might be making a colossal mistake. Our first hint that this desert is teeming with secrets comes from the tireless work of our robotic explorers. Deep-sea drones and autonomous research vessels constantly crisscross the globe, their sonar beams painting a picture of the abyss below. Mostly, they map mountains and canyons we'll never see, but sometimes they pick up something else. In the vast mid-water column, far from the sea floor and far from the surface, fleeting shapes appear on the readouts. These are not whales or submarines. These are colossal biologicals, anomalies that can stretch for hundreds of meters, moving with a clear, deliberate purpose before simply vanishing from the sensors as if they were never there. Scientists label them as glitches, sensor ghosts, or unexplained deep-sea scattering layers. But the question lingers, are we explaining them away? Or are we just afraid to consider what it would mean if they were real? The mystery only deepens when we stop looking and start listening. Draped across the ocean floor is a global network of hydrophones, ultra-sensitive microphones originally placed to listen for enemy submarines or the rumblings of undersea volcanoes. For decades, they have also recorded the planet's most majestic symphony. The songs of whales, the clicks of dolphins, the groan of shifting ice. But in recent years, a new sound has joined the chorus. It's a cryptic, low-frequency signal, a deep and resonant hum that vibrates through the water for hours before modulating into a complex sequence of clicks and trills that sounds unnervingly like language. It follows no known pattern of any marine animal, and its complexity suggests an intelligence that we have no framework for. It's a whisper from the void, a broadcast from an unknown source, raising the chilling question: who, or what, is talking down there in the dark? Perhaps the most disturbing evidence of all doesn't come from our instruments, but from the bodies of the ocean's current giants. When the carcass of a great whale washes ashore, it tells a story. And recently, those stories have become a source of profound confusion and horror for marine biologists. These creatures are not bearing the familiar scars of combat or predation, not the parallel rake marks of an orca's teeth or the cookie-cutter scoop of a small shark. Instead, their flesh is marred by wounds of impossible precision. We are finding vast, interlocking geometric patterns carved into their blubber. Perfectly concentric circles, grids of parallel lines, and spiraling incisions that look less like a bite and more like the work of a machine. No predator we know of hunts like this. It is cold, methodical, and chillingly clean. This isn't a feeding frenzy. It's something else entirely. Something that looks disturbingly like a harvest. So what are we to make of all this? Are these phenomena unrelated coincidences? Ghostly shapes on a sonar screen, strange songs from the abyss, and inexplicable wounds on the largest animals on Earth. It's easy to dismiss each one individually as an error, an anomaly, or a mystery for another day. But when you look at the pieces together, a pattern begins to emerge. The sheer scale of the sonar contacts, the complexity of the acoustic signals, the terrifying precision of the wounds, they all point away from random chance or geological quirks. They point towards biology. They point towards life. A form of life that is enormous, intelligent, and operating on a scale that we are only now beginning to dimly perceive. This evidence forces us to confront a revolutionary and unsettling idea. The open ocean is not a desert. It is a cradle. We may be witnessing, right now, the dawn of a new geological epoch, defined not by the creatures we know, but by the ones that are coming. These whispers and shadows are not echoes of the past, but the first announcements of a new order. A new age of giants may be dawning in the deep, a dynasty of predators so vast and so alien that they have remained hidden in plain sight, evolving in the largest and most mysterious realm on our own planet. The reign of today's ocean kings may be coming to an end, and we have to ask ourselves, what new rulers are about to claim the throne? Those strange whispers from the deep, the sonar ghosts, the impossible wounds, they aren't messages from another dimension. They are symptoms of a planet in the grip of a profound and violent transformation. To understand the monsters that are beginning to stir in the abyss, we first have to understand the world that is creating them. We must look at the crime scene. The truth is, our ocean is sick, and its sickness is creating an opportunity for a new and terrifying kind of life to emerge. This isn't a story about the distant future. This is a story about the consequences of today, unfolding in the dark. For over a century, our civilization has been fundamentally changing the chemistry of the seas. The vast, stable environment that nurtured life for millions of years is becoming warmer, more acidic, and, most critically, it is beginning to suffocate. Spreading across the globe are enormous oxygen minimum zones, vast stretches of water where life as we know it can barely breathe. The very foundations of the marine food web, the plankton and krill, are collapsing under the strain. Think of it as a kingdom whose farms are failing and whose air is turning to poison. This isn't a slow, gentle change. It's a planetary-scale catastrophe, and it has triggered the greatest extinction event the oceans have seen in millennia. In this dying world, the old kings are the first to fall. The great white shark, a 60-million-year-old masterpiece of evolution, a perfect predator, is struggling to survive in waters that are too warm and empty of its traditional prey. The orca, with its complex culture and fierce intelligence, finds its intricate societies fracturing as its hunting grounds shift and its food sources vanish. These magnificent creatures are the apex of a world that is ceasing to exist. They are like knights in heavy armor, suddenly forced to fight in a swamp. Their strength has become a burden, their adaptations a liability in this new, hostile ocean. Their decline leaves behind a terrifying power vacuum. In ecology, this is known as the empty niche principle. Nature abhors a vacuum. When the top predator in an ecosystem is removed, it creates an opening, a vacancy at the very top of the food chain. It is like a throne that has been suddenly and violently emptied. This throne does not stay empty for long. The absence of a ruler is a signal, an invitation broadcast to every other living thing in the ecosystem. The ultimate prize is now up for grabs. What follows is not peace, but a brutal and chaotic power struggle as evolution begins its frantic search for a successor. But the rules for this new contest are completely different. The next ruler of the seas will not be simply another shark or a bigger whale. The environmental pressures that killed off the old kings will ensure that their successor is something new, something radically different. The future belongs to creatures that can thrive in chaos. It belongs to organisms that are brutally efficient, that can tolerate low oxygen levels, and that can capitalize on the unstable boom-and-bust food chains of this new world. Evolution is no longer selecting for size and strength alone. It is selecting for resilience, adaptability, and a kind of alien ingenuity. Right now, in the twilight zones and the abyssal plains, evolution is running its most daring experiments. It is a planetary-scale audition, and the candidates are being forged in the crucible of a changing world. The successors to the great sharks and whales will not come from their own fading dynasties. They will rise from lineages we have long underestimated or ignored completely. They are the understudies, the background players of the old world who are now stepping onto center stage. And the first contender to seize this empty throne is not a solitary giant, but something far more numerous, far more coordinated, and far more terrifying. The old kings are gone, their thrones left empty and cold. So, who is the first to claim this vacant crown? When we picture a new ruler of the seas, our imagination defaults to something monolithic. A bigger shark, a fiercer whale, a single colossal leviathan. But the first true heir to the ocean's throne is none of those things. It is something far more numerous, far more adaptable, and in many ways far more terrifying. The answer lies with a creature we already know and fear, a lineage of intelligent hunters that have always lurked in the shadows of the food web, the cephalopods. specifically the descendants of the brutally effective and notoriously aggressive Humboldt squid. Even today, Humboldt squid are known as Diablos Rojos, red devils, by fishermen. They are famous for their explosive aggression, their cannibalistic tendencies, and their ability to hunt in frenzied, disorganized swarms. In the dying oceans of the past, this was a successful but limited strategy. But in the new, chaotic, low-oxygen world we described, their greatest strengths were amplified. Their rapid, live fast, die young life cycle allowed them to adapt at an incredible pace, evolving generation by generation while larger animals were still struggling. As their ancient competitors vanished, the squid's populations didn't just recover. They exploded, seizing control of the unstable new food webs with ruthless efficiency. This population explosion was the spark for their next great evolutionary leap. The pressure of managing such massive numbers pushed their intelligence in a new direction. It evolved beyond individual cunning into something unprecedented, a true collective consciousness. We call them legion squids. They are not just a swarm, they are a single, distributed superorganism, a legion of bodies connected by a single will. Their primary method of communication is no longer just simple posturing. It's a high-bandwidth language of light. Across their skin, waves of complex, bioluminescent patterns flash in fractions of a second, a biological internet that links thousands of minds into one cohesive, thinking entity. The horror of the legion squid lies in this shared intelligence. A single squid is a clever problem solver. 1,000 squid sharing a single thought process is something else entirely. Imagine a predator that covers a square mile of ocean but thinks and acts as one being. They don't just mob their prey in a chaotic frenzy. They strategize. Outer layers of the swarm will form a living net, herding schools of fish or even larger animals, while specialized attack groups inside the perimeter coordinate to strike at the most vulnerable points. There are no roars, no battle cries, just an eerie silence punctuated by the mesmerizing, hypnotic flashing of lights and the methodical, rhythmic sound of thousands of beaks tearing into flesh. And it's this cold, methodical precision that solves one of our earlier mysteries. Remember those bizarre, geometric scars found on the bodies of whales? They were not inflicted by a single jaw. They are the signature of the legion. When the swarm targets a massive creature, one too large to be taken down by a single bite, they engage in a process that is less a hunt and more a harvest. Groups of squid attach to the animal, and, communicating through light pulses to ensure perfect synchronization, they begin to carve. Their sharp beaks, working in unison, slice away flesh in clean, efficient patterns, spirals, circles, and grids, designed to remove the maximum amount of tissue with terrifying speed. It is the scar left by an intelligent, organized, industrial-scale predator. The legion squids have claimed the sunlit pelagic zone as their undisputed territory. They are a thinking, breathing ocean current of hunger and intellect, a hive mind that has filled the power vacuum left by the great sharks and orcas. They are the new rulers of the surface. A swarm that thinks as one is a terrifying prospect, a dominant force that rules through overwhelming numbers and brutal coordination. But the ocean is deep. In the crushing, darker zones below, a different kind of power was evolving in the shadows. A predator that traded the strength of the many for the solitary, terrifying genius of one. The legion squids have conquered the sunlit surface, a thinking tide of hunger that moves as one. But their rule is not absolute. For every empire of light, there is a kingdom of shadow, and in the crushing blackness of the mid-ocean, a very different kind of power has taken root. This is the source of those other mysteries, the deep, complex acoustic signals that mimic language, and the sonar ghosts that seem to tease our most advanced technology. While the swarm rules through the power of the many, this entity rules through the terrifying power of one. This is not a collective. This is a solitary mind, a ghost in the machine of the ocean, and its genius is matched only by its horrifying scale. Its story begins with one of the most remarkable creatures in our modern seas, the mimic octopus, a master of disguise, capable of impersonating everything from a venomous lionfish to a sea snake. But in the tumultuous future ocean, A branch of this lineage took its gift for deception and went a different way. Instead of settling onto the seafloor, it never grew up, a biological phenomenon known as neoteny. It retained the free-swimming, planktonic traits of its larval stage, remaining a permanent wanderer of the open water. Unconstrained by the need to hide on the reef, it just kept growing generation after generation, until it became something the world had never seen. A fully pelagic, continent-spanning octopus of truly monstrous size. We call this creature the solitary mimic, or simply the kraken. It is a bus-sized ambush predator that has elevated hunting to a horrifying art form. It does not rely on speed or overwhelming force. Its primary weapon is its mind. The kraken is a creature of immense, patient intelligence. It learns. It observes the patterns of its prey, the patrol routes of the legion swarms, and even the paths of our own submersibles. It doesn't chase. It anticipates. Its hunts are cerebral, meticulously planned traps where the victim is already doomed long before it even senses danger. It is a predator that thinks, and its thoughts are patient, ancient, and utterly alien. Its first tool of deception is its skin, an organ so sophisticated it beggars belief. This is not mere camouflage. The kraken's chromatophores and muscles allow it to replicate not just the color, but the very texture and reflectivity of any surface. In the open ocean, it can flatten its body and become a shimmering, kilometer-long filament that looks like a strand of marine snow. Near a seamount, its skin will ripple and harden to perfectly imitate a rock outcropping, complete with algae patterns. Most chillingly, it can make itself look like nothing at all. A patch of empty, dark water, a hole in reality waiting for something to swim past. The true horror of the kraken is that you could be looking right at it and have absolutely no idea. The second tool is even more terrifying. Its voice. Remember those complex, almost linguistic signals from the abyss? That is the kraken talking. It possesses vocal structures capable of perfectly replicating any sound it has ever heard, and it uses this ability with demonic creativity. To lure a pod of future dolphins, it will mimic the distress clicks of a calf separated from its mother. To draw in a competitor, it will flawlessly reproduce the territorial call of a rival male. And to investigate us, it does something that chills oceanographers to the bone. It perfectly mimics the sonar ping of a deep-sea submersible, effectively asking, "Who are you?" in our own technological language, long before its massive eye ever appears in the viewport. Here, then, is the second new ruler of the seas, a solitary, shape-shifting, voice-stealing leviathan. It is the perfect antithesis to the legion, a singular, terrifying intellect against a collective, swarming mind. The ocean is no longer a single kingdom but a realm divided between two impossible dynasties. The surface belongs to the thinking swarm, the depths to the lonely god of deception. The blue desert we once imagined is gone. In its place is a vibrant, terrifying battleground, an ecosystem of nightmares. This raises the final, desperate question. In a world ruled by such perfect predators, how does anything else even begin to survive? So now we have a world ruled by two new gods, a thinking swarm and a solitary shape-shifting genius. The ocean is no longer a desert. It's a hunting ground where the shadows have teeth and the water itself can think. Faced with such impossible predators, life should have collapsed. The seas should be a sterile wasteland, picked clean by the legion and the kraken. But that's not how life works. Evolution is not a one-way street. For every new weapon, evolution engineers a new shield. What we are seeing is not an ending, but the beginning of a violent and spectacular new chapter in life's oldest story, the evolutionary arms race. This arms race is the engine of creation, a desperate dance between hunter and hunted that forges the weird, the wonderful, and the terrifying. The rise of these new apex predators was a declaration of war against every other living thing in the sea, and the rest of the ecosystem has answered with an arsenal of bizarre and brilliant defenses. Let's start with the legion squids, the hive mind rulers of the surface. How do you fight a predator that is everywhere at once, a creature whose every part shares a single, malevolent thought? You don't fight its body, you attack its mind. The descendants of today's dolphins have evolved a truly astonishing defense mechanism we call sonic armor. They can no longer outrun the swarm or outfight it in a head-on confrontation. Instead, they have learned to jam its network. By generating a highly focused, complex burst of sound, a chaos pulse. A pod of these future dolphins can overload the squid's delicate light-based communication. The hive mind shatters. The perfectly coordinated superorganism collapses into a panicked mob of thousands of individual, confused squid. The terrifying legion becomes a disoriented rabble, allowing the dolphins to either escape or even pick off the confused stragglers. They fight a ghost with a scream. But how do you defend against the kraken? A creature you can't even see until it's too late. You can't jam its mind and you can't fight it. The only solution is to beat it at its own game of deception. Enter the ghost fish, the future descendants of today's tuna. Under the immense predatory pressure of the kraken, their evolution has taken a radical turn towards invisibility. Their scales, muscles, and even their flesh have become almost perfectly transparent, composed of specialized proteins that bend light around their bodies. They are living mirages, distortions in the water that the kraken's hyper-advanced eyes struggle to resolve into a solid target. They are a prey that has learned to become a ghost in a world haunted by a monster. Of course, not every creature can evolve such complex, active defenses. For some, the best strategy is not to run or hide, but to become simply inedible. Imagine a creature that has resurrected an ancient blueprint for survival. The armored placoderms of the Devonian period. In this future ocean, a new gentle giant emerges. It's a colossal, slow-moving filter feeder, a living mountain of bone and cartilage covered head to tail in thick, interlocking crystalline plates. This creature is a biological fortress. The legion squid's beaks shatter against its armor. The kraken, an ambush specialist, has no way to crack open a living tank the size of a building. It simply drifts through the chaos, a monument to the simple, brute force effectiveness of passive defense. This is the new ocean, a world of living weapons and breathing armor, a dynamic and terrifying ecosystem forged in fear. It is a world of ghost fish slipping through the water, sonic dolphins screaming at hive minds, and living castles placidly ignoring the gods of the sea. The balance of power is no longer simple. It's a complex, multi-layered conflict where survival depends on the most creative and radical adaptations. The future sea is far from empty. It is more vibrant, more strange, and more dangerous than ever before. But this raises one final, chilling question. In this new world of monsters and monster slayers, where do we, humanity, fit in? So the future ocean is a world of living weapons and breathing armor, a realm governed by a thinking swarm and a shape-shifting god. It is a dynamic, terrifying, and thriving ecosystem. This intricate balance of nightmares raises one final, chilling question. In a world of monsters, where do we, humanity, fit in? For as long as we have been human, we have been explorers, driven by an insatiable curiosity. We built towers to the heavens and sent probes to the stars. It was only a matter of time before we turned our gaze back down, to the greatest and most dangerous frontier left on our own planet. Imagine our finest creation, a submersible named the Wanderer. It is not a clumsy vessel of steel and bolts. It is a masterpiece of engineering, a sleek teardrop of advanced ceramics and crystal-clear polycarbonates. It glides through the crushing dark on a near-silent magneto-hydrodynamic drive, a bubble of warmth, light, and human intellect in a profoundly alien world. Its crew, the best and brightest of a new generation of explorers, watch their sensors paint a picture of this new biodiversity with a sense of profound wonder. They believe themselves to be pioneers, cataloging a new genesis. They believe they are the observers. But then our perspective shifts. We pull away from the submersible, seeing it for what it truly is. A tiny, fragile spark of light in an infinite, crushing blackness. We are no longer looking out from its viewport. We are looking at it. From the darkness, a colossal eye fades into view. It is an iris wider than a human is tall, an ancient, unblinking lens that has been watching the submersible for hours. The solitary mimic, the kraken, has been here all along, a living mountain of flesh and thought, perfectly camouflaged as a patch of empty, dark water. It has been patient. It has been learning. The Kraken doesn't strike. Not yet. The hunt is a cerebral game to this creature. Slowly, silently, it begins to move, its immense body drifting parallel to the human vessel. A current of energy seems to flow across its skin. The chromatophores, those miracle cells of color and light, begin their work. In a wave of silent, hypnotic motion, the Kraken's dark skin ripples, shifts, and then reforms. It adopts the precise color, the specific reflectivity, the faint metallic sheen of the submersible's advanced hull. It is not just hiding anymore. It is studying, analyzing, and perfectly mirroring our pinnacle of technology. It has become our shadow. Back inside the Wanderer, the atmosphere of calm discovery has evaporated. An alarm blares, low and insistent. The pilot reports a ghost image on the sonar, a signature that is an exact match for their own vessel, tracking them in their blind spot. The engineer stares at her console, unable to explain the bizarre energy fluctuations that ripple around their hull, as if something is scanning them. The biologist, looking at the external cameras, sees only darkness. But she has a sickening feeling, the primal, ancestral fear of being watched by a predator she cannot see. The confidence of the explorer has been replaced by the terror of the prey. Suddenly, the main lights flicker and die, plunging the cockpit into the stark, terrifying red of the emergency backup system. The pilot shouts that the sonar ghost is no longer a ghost. It's right on top of them, its signal overwhelming their own. Then, a new sound comes through the hydrophone speakers, a sound that freezes the blood. It is a single, clear sonar ping, a perfect digital replica of their own active signal, but it didn't come from their transmitter. It came from right outside the viewport. For a horrifying second, there is absolute silence. Then, a final, deafening shriek of groaning. Twisting metal fills the abyss. Then, nothing. Only darkness. We went looking for monsters, and we found them. We sought to catalog their world, to understand them, to place them within our own framework of knowledge. But in this new ocean, our curiosity was mistaken for a challenge, and our presence was seen as an intrusion. We forgot the oldest rule of the wild. When you stare into the abyss stares back. And in this future, when the abyss stares back, it is with a cold, calculating, and hungry intelligence. We are no longer the explorers. We are the trespassers,